Hi, good morning, and welcome to the ZP vlog on podcast. So every Sunday at 8 a.m. London time, we like to do a vlog on podcast specifically, really just to cover the news from Zimmer and Peacock. So this is technically a lot lighter. We often do a webinar on Thursdays at 8 a.m. specifically for the members of our ZP Developer Zone, but and that's really a sort of more technical one, but this one is a lighter webinar, as in really intended to just cover the news for this week. So I'm essentially going to sort of jump into it now and say some of the news from Zimmer and Peacock this week is at ZP, we are a biosensor company. So if you look at our history, we developed screen printed electrodes. We turned screen printed electrodes into biosensors. We built the electronics for those biosensors, and then we started building the apps for those biosensors and the Julie Cloud. So that means now that we are adhering to, for our clients, especially in the medical space, a sort of regulation or a requirements called IE6 62304. This is really kind of important anyway, because we are ISO 13485, so we are qualified for the development and manufacture of electrochemical biosensors. But this IEC 62304 or 304 means that we can really kind of control the life cycle of software, which is used in medical devices, or the software itself is a medical diagnostic. So if you look on our website, we kind of have a decision tree type thing that allows people to understand how to classify the software, whether it's be A, B, or C. And then we also have, if you end up being classified as a class A, a class B, or a class C piece of software in the medical space, then the kind of requirements for class A are the least strict, and for class C are the most strict. So at ZP, we are, as I say, ISO 13485, and that does mean now that we have to, or we have to treat software also as a medical product as well. So we just kind of discussed that a little bit on the website this week. Now, in kind of line with our vision, at Zimmer and Peacock, we really like to disrupt the market, and so, we're looking at screen printed electrodes, and we're looking at electronics, and we're saying, I'll tell you what, let's just give these things away essentially as freebies with the license to Julie. So Julie is really an excellent product from ZP. It allows us to upload our data, share our data, analyze our data, and for that we sell subscriptions. But then in fact what we're doing with the subscriptions is actually giving away free hardware and free screen printed electrodes. So essentially people are paying no more than they would have normally, except they get the Julie license for it. So it's an emphasis on Julie rather than an emphasis on the screen printed electrodes themselves. And so we were kind of happy to talk about that this week. What's really kind of a pleasure to us at ZP is the way that the team in Norway and the team in the UK. I mean, in Norway, there's an image up there on the website this week where all the guys have gone skiing or snowboarding together, and it looks really beautiful, and they took the ZP flag with them, so we really appreciate the way the guys hang out together and have fun outside of work together, and it's part of the sort of, let's say, the ZP culture. Now as part of that as well, they actually, we just put a little picture up there, but they basically borrowed the flag from the ZP offices. So we have said this a few times, but we do have quite a few facilities these days. The biggest one is sort of 4,000 square meters, and you can spot it from the local highway because it's got a giant ZP flag waving from it. And so the guys had borrowed that flag and took it skiing with them. Now, this is just a bit of, I say that this webinar is less technical, but it's, we do put, let's say, interesting information up there. So I just want to say hi to Aftab this morning. Morning, Aftab. So we just put some data up there this week, which is actually from one of our TAS sensors. TAS is total antioxidative status. So one of our TAS sensors what I knew that this sensor would have good shelf life. Some of our sensors have got enzymes in them. Some of the sensors, have antibodies on them. So you can kind of at least judge, the kind of stability of a sensor based on its on the materials of construction. Now, these TAS sensors, I knew that they were fairly robust materials, and so the guys had actually been storing them for 12 months, and then they basically got some out the other day and just retested them, and after 12 months there's really no difference in the sensitivity and the offset for these sensors. So it tells us that the TAS sensors actually have a really excellent shelf life. So it's anecdotal, but literally we test them almost exactly a year later, and they were still the same functionality that we had the previous year. So well done for the team. I think this is actually a good reflection of Julie in some ways, because at Zimmer and Peacock we use Julie a lot, and it basically means that we know where our data is. If you talk to so many research institutions or so many companies, they really can't put their finger on where their data actually is. But ZP we did, so we were able to look at data that was 1 year old and looked at fresh data, and we were able to show that the sensors had really excellent shelf life. So that was a nice bit of data from ZP. We also have a sensor called an NADH sensor. So at Zimmer Peacock, we said we started off by making screen printed electrodes. We then became biosensors, and we then developed electronics. Then we then developed apps. But in part of that biosensor journey, we've also developed a sensor for NADH. Many biosensors on the market, they often use either oxidase enzymes. Oxidase is the one that kind of reacts with your molecule of interest and oxygen, and one of the products is hydrogen peroxide, and it's hydrogen peroxide then that gives ZP the opportunity to be able to measure that hydrogen peroxide. Now, there's also another important group of enzymes called dehydrogenases, and this week our team were able to test dehydrogenases. I think we were testing them at like 200, 400, 600, 800 micromolar. Now for ZP, micromolar is actually quite high concentration. The most highest, one of the highest concentration things we measure is millimolar. We often do that in glucose. Lactate is often millimolar. But then in this NADH, we were actually measuring micromolar, and we got really good signals. So that was nice to see that data. And again, if you're watching this video, the data, the way we display the data, it's all basically being uploaded to Julie. Now, we had a really busy webinar this Thursday at 8 a.m. London time. We always do this ZP Developer Zone webinar every Thursday. And this week we covered an awful lot. We covered glucose oxidase, we covered HIV sensors, we covered screen printed electrodes, we covered generation 2 lactate sensors, we covered malaria, we covered measuring sweat, lactate in sweat rather, and we'd also covered questions on oxygen sensors. So we had a fairly busy webinar for the ZP Developer Zone this week. Now there'll probably be some more information coming out on this pretty soon, but Zimmer and Peacock, we really are world experts in CGM, continuous glucose monitoring. And so I have a little picture up on the website of a CGM sensor. I suppose if for the purposes of this, I'll call it the spike. But we basically have a spike with a sort of platinum-based working electrodes with an enzyme on it, and then we have silver chloride reference essentially wrapped around it. And so, we do have a lot of inquiries from people wanting to do CGM, and Zimmer and Peacock is probably the leading independent contract developer and manufacturer of CGM sensors. So we're happy to partner with people up on our CGM technology. So we've been refreshing some of the images this week on our website regarding CGM. And I think in the next couple of days, we're going to put out quite a bit of information about micro needles. These are, interesting to people, and we've got a lot of technology around the around micro needles. I think we're getting near the end now. We did this Friday have some, we're really lucky at ZP. We're a hub for collaborators, and so some collaborators had come along and, you know, spent the day with us brainstorming, you know, and helping develop products. So we put a bit of an image up about collaboration. And at ZP, we are actually really, I think, excellent collaborators. You know, we're good listeners. I always think the best ideas are in other people's heads. Now, this is the next thing I want to cover is providing free webinars on online demonstrations for academia. So we've been doing this for a little while, and we've not really ever sort of offered it as a, let's say, a value-added service. But I put a little image up there because we actually have a bit of a studio these days. The picture is of one of our engineers. You know, you can see him if you're watching the video rather than the podcast. He's sitting behind his monitor. He's got his laptops up there. He's got his lights up there. He's got his cameras up there. He's got a desktop, and he's essentially doing a live demo with a couple of our engineers who will be sat in front of the cameras. But what this is saying is, at ZP, we're quite happy to do live demonstrations for academics and research institutions. Just give us a heads up. We'll provide the kind of content, and we do try to keep it very technical. You know, we do not want to be providing, you know, essentially commercial material. You know, we concentrate on electrochemistry, electrochemical biosensors, electrochemical sensors, voltammetry, amperometry, potentiometry, impedance spectroscopy. We do a live demonstration of voltammetry, a live demonstration of amperometry, and a live demonstration of potentiometry. So we're very happy to be able to provide this material online. I will often do the presentation, then we'll cut to one of our engineers and scientists, and they'll do a demonstration. And I think it's just a really nice way of essentially reinforcing what we're actually teaching. So that's something that we're happy to offer to academia. Now, I've mentioned the word Joule a few times. I think Joule definitely defines a revolution in the world of electrochemical sensing and electrochemistry in general. I think the world of electrochemistry has to move towards actually focusing on the value of the data rather than the collection of the data. I think in the past, electrochemistry has focused on getting the data, but actually we need to really now unlock that data, the value of that data, and that's why the Joule database is important. And Joule has a really nice feature which allows you to essentially have what we call a cluster in Joule. If you right click on Joule and put in somebody's email, as long as they're in the system or on the database, their name will pop up, and then you'll be able to essentially share your data with that particular person. Now, there's also, like any good cloud system, we also need to provide feedback for that system, and so Joule also has a strong feedback feature. You know, you can't go to market with a product and not expect to have to, you know, receive feedback, because at ZP I really believe in the philosophy of MVP, minimally viable product, especially when you've got these kind of cloud systems. You know, you kind of can go to market and allow users to sort of guide the development and the improvement of the product. So at ZP, we really believe in that philosophy. Joule has that built into it. It has a feedback form, and we hope that people will adopt it and use it and give us the feedback. I know there's a lot of news this week. I feel like it's been a really busy week. I'm really glad that the world is sort of opening back up again. I hope this will mean that we can unlock the idea of doing some international regional visits. You know, so, you know, I'd love to kind of go to India in Q3, Q4 this year, as an example. But a bit closer to home, we're going to Journée de l'électrochimie, Journée de l'électrochimie 2020. So that's Electrochemistry Days 2022, with our sister company Maldolex, and this will be in France, and it's basically a conference for francophones, for speakers. So we will be attending that, myself and our colleague from Maldolex. So at Zimmer and Peacock, part of the strength of the business is really the strength of our relationships with other people, and we really value those. Now, there's another conference coming up as well. It's called Serials. This is really exciting in some ways. If companies like Zimmer and Peacock can't help contribute to things like, feeding the world, then we really, we shouldn't exist, let's say. That's a little extreme, but there's a conference called Serials. It's all about the cereals industry in the UK. Wheat production in the UK, in the world, is really important. It's one of the biggest sources of protein and nutrient and carbohydrate for people. And so we're attending a conference, and we're going to talk about our nitrate sensor for monitoring the nutrients in the soil during the growing. Now, just the last bit of news from Zimmer and Peacock. We have a very strong partner in India. They're technically really strong, and they're also really good at supporting clients and customers. And so we just put a little image up this week of Aftab from Technando, and he's teaching one of our collaborators in India. And as part of that kind of introduction to electrochemistry that he's giving them there, he's also providing free hypervalue carbon electrodes. I don't know if you know our hypervalue carbon electrodes, but these really are the world's highest selling screen printed electrodes for the R&D market, and I'd actually say by far really the world's best quality screen printed electrodes for R&D market as well. And the quality comes about from the fact that I've said it so many times that ZP uses these electrodes a lot. So we are using our own product, and that really makes us very different from just about any other screen printer in the world, that we are the biggest users of our own products. So I'm going to kind of sum up now, or wrap up now, and say, we have covered an awful lot this week. You can see that we've been working on continuous glucose monitoring. You can see that we've been at least our partners have been giving free training and free screen printed electrodes in India. You can see that we're attending conferences now in France and also back in the UK on the nutrient side. You can see that we're starting to put a lot more material out there about Julie. So it's been a really busy week, let's say. So we will be doing our webinar for the ZP Developer Zone members on Thursday at 8 a.m. If you have technical questions for Zimmer and Peacock, contact us, and you'll probably find that your questions get answered during that webinar. Otherwise, I want to say thank you very much for attending today. Thank you, Aftab. I suspect that Saran, one of our guys, is watching in the background, and appreciate you coming along. And if you listen to the podcast, fantastic. And if you watch the vlog, thank you very much. And if you've got questions, don't be shy to reach out to us. Okay, thanks very much.